Hello and welcome to TempWorks Training. In this section, we will introduce and discuss how to create info pages and workflows in HRCenter administration. This training will also cover all questions posed within the related quiz. Please take the quiz immediately after the training. All right, let's begin. So we've talked about how we create forms and how we create surveys. Next, let's take a look at our third type of page that we can create in HRCenter administration, and that is our info pages or information pages. Now, unlike survey pages and form pages, there's no need for us to actually build that information page from scratch like we have to do with surveys and forms. You'll actually see when I select the new icon in the upper right-hand corner, this page type of information is stating that it is using a preset template to collect a set of information such as personal info or work history. What we will be able to customize is the questions that are going to be shown and the questions that we are going to be requiring our applicants to answer. So why don't we go ahead and make a contact page. And we'll select next to move to page 2 of our Create Page wizard. And here in this page dropdown, this is where we see that full list of all of the templates that we can choose from, including in my example, that contact information. We start with some default recommendations or settings. It's showing us that not only is it showing the primary phone number, it's also requiring it. Maybe I don't even want to show a secondary phone. I don't really care about that. Perhaps I want to require the emergency contact and the emergency phone number. And maybe I'll actually just show primary phone and phone type, but I'm not going to require it. I am also going to show the cell carrier and the received texts. So this is how an employee could enroll themselves in texting updates from your company. We'll select next again, and then we'll be able to do a little bit of additional customizing. Per usual, we don't have to worry about those post-fill procedures. That's too technical for us. We will go ahead and enter a received text disclaimer. So this will display for applicants before and when they give their texting contact information. Okay, perfect. So I have my disclaimer set. We are ready to move on. And it's as easy as that. I can now click to finish. So now that we've created that page, I have the ability to add that to a workflow. So in our workflow section here, if I wanted to add this to our basic application workflow, I would simply select that workflow and choose to include it in one of our existing steps. Or I could add a new step just for that contact information page, which seems a little silly. I'm going to go ahead and add it to our first step, the application step, where they give us all of their information. Here we see the 5 pages that I currently have. If I wanted to add in that contact information, then from our info page, I would choose employee contact information. Then when I select next, I have the ability to customize the order in which this all appears. So maybe I want that contact information to be a little earlier on in the application process. But once I'm happy with how this looks, we can select the check icon, and that has successfully updated our basic application workflow, so that first step now contains 6 pages. Let's see what this looks like for an applicant. We'll register as a new user. And let's begin that application. So on the left-hand side, we are seeing all of the pages that are included in this step, including the employee contact information that we created. We'll go ahead and get started, and I'm actually going to hop right on into that employee contact information. we're seeing right now that we're requiring just that emergency contact and that emergency contact phone. I'll go ahead and key in that contact number, and we'll choose the primary phone type. I have the options to choose voice and text, voice only, or landline. If I choose voice only, it's leaving it at that. We're saying that this is just a cell phone for calling. However, if I choose voice and text, we now have 2 additional required questions that come up. We now need to provide the cell carrier. So I'll go ahead and say that this is T-Mobile. And do I want to receive texts about jobs? And sure enough, there's my custom text there. I'm going to say yes, go ahead and contact me. Perfect. And we'll save and continue. If we now look for Franklin Doors record in our system, it's a little bit of a skeleton record. There's really not much there, but what we do have is all of those pieces of contact information. We have the cell phone, and we also have that SMS email contact type, which would of course allow me to text that employee out of the system. So customizing info pages, pretty easy, especially since we have those preset templates. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we actually create a new workflow from scratch. To create a new workflow, from the Workflow section of HRCenter Administration, we're going to select the new icon in the upper right-hand corner. So keep in mind that the workflow is the whole entire process. It's going to be a series of steps, 1 or more steps. I'm going to call this our technical application. So this is going to be the application for candidates in the technical space. We'll click Next. And in step 2, we get to assign steps. It even tells us here, a workflow is useless without first defining the steps which the applicant has to follow. You can always come back and assign steps later. We'll create our first step, and I'm going to call this our application. If I leave the step introduction and review and thank you and rejection text blank, it doesn't mean that they're not going to get intro text. It just means they'll get our very generic TempWorks default intro text. If I wanted to customize this and say, thank you for your interest in high-tech staffing, we look forward to learning all about you, then I can certainly do that. And if we ever put text into any of these fields, that's always going to override our default settings. Okay, so I'm done entering in all of my custom intro and review and thank you and rejection text. Before I move on to the next page, I have one more question here, and that is, do I want to auto-advance the step? If I have this set to no, what that means is that it's going to take an internal TempWorks user, so a recruiter or somebody on your team, to advance an applicant to the next step of this workflow. Meaning our applicant will only get the ability to complete new steps by having you manually move them on to that next step. The other option is to have this auto advance step set to yes. So what that means is as soon as our applicant submits the first step, it automatically graduates them to the second step. It's really going to depend on the scenario and how your workflow is set up that makes the most sense. You know, for example, if I had a 2-step workflow, an application and onboarding, I really probably don't want every single applicant to be advanced to onboarding. I probably only want to advance employees that get hired through us. So in that case, I would say no. But maybe after step 1, we have them complete testing. So I might be fine with having them automatically advance to that testing step. I'll click next again. And here now I'm choosing my pages. So what do I want them to fill out? going to start by having them complete their basic information. Maybe I also want them to upload a resume. Maybe I want their contact information. And how about their job work history and their educational background. When I click next again, I now have the ability to sort this information. So I want to start by just allowing them to upload their resume. Then I'll have them do their basic information, fill out their contact information, do the work history and education. We'll click that checkbox, and then it's going to move me back to the assign steps piece of creating a workflow. So right now we just have that one step. If I want to create a testing step next, we'll create that second step. I'm going to call it testing. I won't worry about that fancy custom intro and thank you text this time. And because my next step in my workflow is going to be onboarding, I'm not going to have this automatically advanced. The only way somebody's going to be able to fill out that I-9 and W-4 is if I advance them to that step. We'll click next, and here I want them to do some tests. So I'm going to have them do an addition quiz. I want to do an aptitude assessment. Why don't we learn about their personality as well? We created that personality quiz together. Next again, and we'll leave it at that. Those are going to be my 3 tests that they have to complete in that order. Check mark again. Now we have our 2 steps, application and testing. This time I'm going to create my onboarding step. This will be the last step in my workflow, so I don't have to worry about auto-advancing. Next again. This time they're going to be completing those form pages. Why don't we have them complete the I-9 and the W-4 and that insurance form that we created. Next again, in this case, I happen to like the order that it's in. I'll have them do the I-9 first and then the W-4 and then enroll in insurance. Check mark to confirm that my step is done in being created. These are the 3 steps that I want for my technical workflow. So we'll use that arrow icon to move to the next step. It is allowing me to review what that workflow will look like. So I see that my technical application workflow is built from 3 steps: the application step, the testing step, and the onboarding step. And every page within that step is visible for me to review. I feel good about how this looks, so I'll use that check mark again to finish. Now we have our technical application. By default, new workflows that we make are not web public. So not just anybody could come and complete this workflow. The only way they'd be able to complete the workflow is if we invited them to participate in that workflow from Enterprise. If I do want this to be web public, it's a really easy change to make. We just select that check mark icon and we're good. So now if we go back into Enterprise and into HRCenter, we'll see that one of the workflows we've created is our technical application, which is built from 1, 2, 3 steps. And that is how you create information pages and workflows from HRCenter administration. Please complete the related quiz before moving on to the next training. Thank you.